I built that business with burned hands, unpaid bills, and a kind of faith people only respect after it. Work stopped. My childhood best friend tried to take it from me in 3 weeks. The only reason she failed was because she didn't know I had cameras in places she never thought to look. I met Tasha when we were 9 years old, barefoot in the back lot behind my grandmother's church, fighting over the last piece of lemon cake at the summer picnic. She won the cake. I won the argument. We stayed friends for almost 30 years. That kind of history makes you stupid. It makes you call red flags stress. It makes you excuse disrespect as personality. It makes you confuse familiarity with loyalty. By the time I saw what she was really doing, she had already made copies of my vendor lists, whispered lies to 2 employees, and tried to transfer money out of my business account using forged authorization papers with my name on them. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about the business first, because people always think women are being dramatic. When they say somebody tried to steal their work, they imagine petty gossip, jealousy, hurt feelings. They don't imagine payroll, leases, supplier contracts, state licensing, real money, real damage. My shop was called Honey Lane Home. It started as a folding table at a weekend market with 6 soy candles, some body butter, and a handwritten sign my nephew made because I couldn't afford printed banners. I was 42, freshly divorced, working doubles at a bank call center, and trying not to drown under the kind of shame that comes from having to rebuild your whole life while smiling at other people's account balances. I made the candles at night in my kitchen, poured them after midnight, labeled them before sunrise, packed orders in the trunk of my car during lunch breaks. I didn't have investors. I didn't have rich family. I didn't even have real support in the beginning. What I had was stubbornness, good product, and enough insomnia to make a dream look organized. By year 3, Honey Lane had grown into a real storefront in a renovated brick strip on the east side of town. Candles, body care, handmade gift boxes, seasonal collections, online orders, corporate gift packages during the holidays. 2 full-time employees, 3 part-timers, a tiny office in back with a second-hand desk and a whiteboard full of goals I was too scared to erase after meeting them. That place was mine in a way houses and marriages had never been. Every shelf, every invoice, every late night, every stupid little thing. So when Tasha called me one Sunday afternoon and said, "Girl, I am done working for people who don't know my worth," I should have heard the danger in how fast she pivoted to, "You know, I could help you take Honey Lane to another level." But I didn't, because Tasha had history. History gets treated like proof. She had worked in retail management for years. She knew people. She knew numbers. She knew how to talk like every ordinary idea was a strategy. And I was tired. That part matters. I had just come through the worst Christmas season of my life. Sales were amazing. I should have been thrilled. Instead, I was exhausted, behind on rest, juggling production issues, and trying to pretend my smile was still attached to my spirit. One employee had quit in November. Another kept showing up late with excuses so creative she should have been writing television. My bookkeeper was on maternity leave, and I had started waking up at 3 in the morning, with my heart pounding like bad news was already in the room. So when Tasha said, "Let me come in and help you get organized, temporary, just until you can breathe," I let her. That was mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 was letting her start small. People always talk about betrayal like it arrives with drums. DOES in single quotes. It arrives helpful. It arrives early with coffee. It cleans up spreadsheets. It remembers birthdays. It tells you to sit down while it locks the front door at closing. Tasha was good at being useful. For the first week, she was a blessing. She reworked the stockroom labels. She reorganized our shipping station. She said things like, "You don't need to be doing every little thing yourself. And you built something beautiful. Now let people support it." My staff liked her at first. Why wouldn't they? She came in laughing. She dressed well. She complimented people with just enough accuracy to feel sincere. She called my candles luxury with soul. And honestly, I almost wanted to hire her full-time just for that line alone. But by week 2, things shifted in ways I felt before I could name them. I'd walk out of the office and conversations would stop half a second too late. One day my assistant manager, Kiara, asked me, "Are you really opening a second location already?" I looked at her and said, "What?" She frowned. "Tasha said you were planning one downtown." I never said that. She shrugged, uneasy now. I thought it sounded fast. It was fast. Because it wasn't true. Then one of my vendors emailed asking whether we were changing our billing contact to Tasha Coleman. Another asked whether purchase orders would now be routed through the operations office. We did not have an operations office. We barely had an office with a door that shut right. I asked Tasha about it that evening after the staff left. She was standing at the packing table in a cream blouse, counting bath soap jars like she had been born there. Why are vendors asking if you're our new billing contact? She didn't even look embarrassed. She smiled. That should have scared me more than it did. Oh, that. She said. I was just streamlining communication. You're too buried in the day-to-day. You didn't ask me. I was helping. No. You were speaking for my business without permission. She laughed softly like I was being tense on purpose. Monica, come on. You know I would never do anything against you against me. Interesting phrase. Not without asking, not out of line, not. You're right. Against me. I remember staring at her across that packing table with lavender tissue paper between us and feeling the first little crack in something I had trusted too long. Do not contact anybody as if you run this place, I said. Her smile thinned. Then maybe you should start acting like you can keep up with it. That line sat in the air between us like an insult wrapped in advice. I should have fired her. Then I know that now. But history is tricky. Especially black girl history. Especially with a woman who knew your grandmother's kitchen. Your high school heartbreaks. The name of the first man who made you feel ugly. The way your mother cried at your wedding. And the exact way your voice changes when you're trying not to lose your temper in public. That kind of person doesn't feel like a threat at first. She feels like home. With sharp edges. So I gave her a warning. That was mistake number 3. The next week, my merchant account flagged a payment attempt for $12,000. I found out because my phone buzzed while I was at the wholesaler, loading shipping cartons into the back of my SUV. Unusual transfer request. Manual authorization needed. I stared at the message and froze. $12,000 was not a routine number for us. Large enough to hurt. Small enough to sound believable if disguised right. I called the bank from the parking lot. After 15 minutes of hold music and one woman who said I completely understand your concern in a tone that meant she didn't, I finally got transferred to a business fraud specialist named Alec. Miss Price, he said. A transfer request was submitted online using attached authorization documents. What documents? A signed disbursement authorization naming an approved consulting vendor. My vision narrowed. We don't have any approved consulting vendors. Double quote silence. Then keyboard sounds. Well, Alex said carefully. Someone submitted documentation indicating. Otherwise, I sat down hard on a stack of inventory boxes in my own trunk. Email me everything. I can't email the full packet without secure identity verification, then verify me. By the time I got back to the store, my hands were shaking so hard I missed my first attempt to unlock the office. The documents hit my secure portal 2 minutes later. There it was. My letterhead. My business account. A consulting agreement naming Coleman Strategic Growth Solutions. A payment authorization for $12,000. And my signature, except it wasn't my signature. Not really. It looked like someone had studied it, flattened it, tried to copy confidence without understanding rhythm. I knew exactly who it was before my brain finished the thought. Tasha. The room went quiet around me. The kind of quiet that makes the hum of a printer sound like a threat. I printed the packet and spread the papers across my desk. Then I looked up. Because suddenly I remembered something. 3 months earlier, after a break-in at the boutique next door, my landlord had upgraded hallway surveillance in the common back corridor. At the same time, I'd added 2 discrete cameras inside Honey Lane, 1 in the stockroom entrance and 1 in my office bookshelf. Facing the desk, I installed that second one. Because of seasonal cash handling and because women who build things alone learn to trust evidence more than explanations. Almost nobody knew about the office camera. Not staff, not customers, not even my cousin who helped mount it. Just me and the security company. Tasha definitely didn't know. I sat very still and opened the app on my phone. Then I scrolled back. The forged documents had been submitted that morning at 11:18 a.m. At 11:03, I had been across town meeting the wholesaler. At 11:05, the office camera showed my empty chair, my desk, the printer, the little dried eucalyptus bundle in the corner. At 11:08, the office door opened, and in walked Tasha. No hesitation. No confusion. No knock. She closed the door behind her, sat in my chair, opened the folder where I kept vendor agreements, and pulled out the packet I had signed with our packaging supplier 2 months earlier. Then she took out her phone. Zoomed in on my signature, looked at it, practiced on my legal pad. Once, twice, then she typed on my desktop keyboard, printed something, signed it. Fed it through the scanner, and right before she stood up, she looked directly toward the bookshelf camera without seeing it and muttered, "You should have let me do this the easy way." I watched the whole thing twice, then once more with no sound. By the third time, I wasn't shaking anymore. I was cold. Cold in the way women get when hurt burns past emotion and becomes clarity. I called the bank back and said, Freeze any transfer tied to Coleman's strategic growth solutions. I have internal surveillance evidence of fraud that got their attention. Then I called my attorney. Her name was Diane Mercer. Mid-50s, no nonsense, always dressed like she expected lies to be wearing decent shoes. She had helped me with my lease renewal and trademark paperwork 2 years earlier. When I said, my childhood best friend just forged documents to steal from my business, Diane did not gasp. She said, do you have proof or rage? Both. Good, send the proof first. I send the footage. The documents, the flag transfer notice, and screenshots of vendor emails Tasha had sent without my approval. Then I locked the office, came out to the sales floor, and watched Tasha help a customer choose a gift box like she wasn't trying to rob me before lunch. There was no feeling like that. Seeing Betrayal stand upright in good lighting, she turned, saw my face and smiled. That smile disappeared when I said, Kiara, lock the front door. We're closing early. Tasha's eyes narrowed just slightly. Why? Because I said so. Kiara didn't ask questions. Bless that child. She flipped the sign to close and turned the lock. My two other staff members, Lila and Bree, stood frozen near the register. Tasha laughed softly. Monica, what is this? I held up the forged paperwork. This is what? She barely glanced at it. I don't know what you think you're looking at. I almost admire the nerve. Almost. You submitted a consulting payment request for $12,000 using forged authorization. That is insane. No, I said. Insane is doing it in a building with cameras. Everything stopped, even the air. Tasha's expression changed so fast it almost looked like a mask slipping off, not guilt. First, calculation. She turned slightly, scanning faces, the office door, the back hall, trying to estimate what I had, what the staff knew, what could still be talked around. Then she laughed again. But it came out brittle this time. Cameras? Monica, now you're just embarrassing yourself. No, I said, very calm now. You embarrassed yourself at 11:08 this morning when you sat at my desk and practiced my signature on my legal pad. Lena covered her mouth. Kiara whispered, oh my God. Tasha's head snapped toward them. Don't start with me. She's twisting this because she can't handle help. A step closer. You printed the document. You scanned it. You submitted it. And you said, you should have let me do this the easy way. That hit. Her eyes widened before she could stop them. Then came the pivot. Women like Tasha don't confess first. They accuse. You were going to cut me out, she snapped. After everything I did for you. I stared at her. There it is, I said. What? The part where you tell the truth sideways. She folded her arms hard across her chest. I built half the systems in this place. No. You reorganized shelves and overstepped with vendors for 3 weeks. You needed me. I trusted you. That's not the same thing. That line was so cold, so honest in its cruelty, that Kiara actually took a step backward. Tasha turned to the staff. Y'all know I've been carrying her. You know she's overwhelmed, Kiara said, quiet but clear. That doesn't make it your business. Good girl. Tasha pointed at her. Stay out of grown women's conversations. Don't you ever talk to my staff like they belong to you, I said. She swung back toward me. Done pretending now. I should have had more than payroll scraps for what I brought in here. I blinked once. There it was. Not a misunderstanding. Not bad judgment. Not blurred boundaries. Entitlement. Pure and ugly. You thought you deserved a cut of my business, I said. I thought I deserved not to be treated like an errand girl in something. I could run better than you. There are moments when a friendship dies out loud. That was one of them. I looked at the woman I had known since childhood, and finally saw the thing that had probably been growing in her for years. Not loyalty, comparison, not support, resentment. She had not come to help me scale. She had come to stand close enough to decide my success looked better on her. And when proximity didn't become ownership fast enough, she tried to manufacture the rest. I said, get your bag. She laughed. You think you can just fire me? Yes, you have no contract. Exactly. Her face hardened. You better think carefully. I already did. And what are you going to tell people? The truth. With video. That line hit harder than anything else I'd said. Because liars can fight stories. They hate timestamps. She grabbed her bag off the back counter so hard a display of hand cream rattled. Before leaving, she leaned in close enough that only I could hear her. You think this makes you safe? Half those people buying your candles only came because I know how to sell. I smiled then. A small one. The kind that comes from finally no longer being afraid. And none of them are buying from you in a jumpsuit. Her face twisted. Then she left. The bell over the door rang once when it shut behind her. Bright and stupid and almost cheerful. Nobody moved for a moment. Then Bree whispered, was that real? I looked at my staff, 3 women standing in the wreckage of a normal workday, and said, Yes. And before anything else, I need y'all to know two things. First, the bank stopped the transfer. Second, nobody here is in trouble. Kira asked, did she really? Yes. Lena sat down on a packing stool like her knees had resigned. I closed the store fully, sent everyone home with pay, and spent the evening with Diane, my landlord, and a police officer named Rodriguez who had the tired expression of a man who had seen too many people look shocked after getting caught on camera. When Officer Rodriguez watched the footage, he paused exactly where Tasha practiced my signature. Then he looked at me and said, you'd be surprised how often people think nobody checks cameras. Oh, I'm not surprised anymore, I said. We filed the report. The bank opened a fraud case. Diane sent cease and desist notices to Tasha and to the two vendors she had contacted pretending to have authority. By the next morning, I thought the worst was over. I was wrong because theft is one thing, smear campaigns are meaner. Tasha spent the next week calling people in our circle telling them I had set her up, that I was spiraling, that Honey Lane was failing, that she had only been trying to protect assets, whatever the hell that meant, in a business she did not own. Then she got nastier. She told one mutual friend I had begged her to come save the company, told another I was hiding tax problems, told somebody else I'd been using business money for personal bills. That last one almost impressed me. Criminals are always so creative when auditioning innocence, but she made one mistake. She underestimated how many people in this city had watched me build Honey Lane from folding tables and prayer, and she underestimated how much better truth performs when it's documented. Diane advised me not to post anything public. Yet, no social media warfare, she said. That's where dignity goes to die. So I stayed quiet publicly and got loud legally. We pulled the mail logs, printer timestamps, door access records from the back hallway, vendor correspondence, the partial fingerprint report from the scanner glass. Everything lined up. Tasha had been in my office at the exact time the documents were created, printed, scanned, and submitted. She had used my workstation. She had accessed internal files without permission. She had impersonated an authorized business officer, and because the transfer had crossed a financial threshold, the bank did not treat it like petty mess, they treated it like fraud. Good. Meanwhile, I had another problem, the staff. Not because they had done anything wrong, because betrayal poisons rooms. Kira kept apologizing for not telling me sooner that Tasha had been asking weird questions about payroll access. Lena admitted Tasha told her I was emotionally attached to control and might need to step back for the good of the brand. Bree said she thought Tasha was joking when she asked which vendors gave us the best margins. None of that made me angry at them. Just sad, because predators don't only target the owner, they condition the environment. That Friday, I called a team meeting before opening. We stood in the middle of the shop while morning light came through the front windows and lit up the candle wall like nothing in the world had happened. I need to say something clearly, I told them. What she did is not your fault. People who mean harm almost always arrive sounding helpful. That is how they get close. What matters now is how we move. Then I told them about the fraud report, the bank case, the footage, and the fact that Tasha would not be returning in any capacity. Kira asked, are you okay? I looked around my store. The shelves, the labels, the inventory I counted by hand for years, the business my ex-husband once called a cute hobby with overhead. Then I said the truest thing I had said all week. No. But I will be. That got us through. Not perfectly, but honestly. A month later, the criminal hearing was scheduled. I did not want to go. Let me tell the truth there too. People love revenge in theory. Court smells like old paper and consequences. Tasha rides in a navy blazer, hair sleek, lips neutral, carrying herself like she still thought presentation could negotiate reality. When she saw me, something unreadable crossed her face. Not love, not regret, maybe disbelief that I had really taken it this far. That part almost offended me. What did she expect? That I'd let childhood memories cost me payroll? That I'd forgive attempted theft because we once shared a locker at 12? The prosecutor laid out the facts cleanly. Attempted fraudulent transfer, forged business authorization, unauthorized access, supporting surveillance. When they played the footage, the whole room got very small. Tasha watched herself sit at my desk, watched herself practice my signature, watched herself scan the form. It is one thing to deny a thing out loud. It is another to sit in court while your own hands testify against you. She took a plea. No trial, no dramatic speech, just reduced charges tied to restitution, probation, and a permanent no-contact business order. When the judge asked whether she understood the conditions, her voice came out low and stripped bare. Yes, Your Honor. That should have felt victorious. It didn't. It felt finished. That's different. Outside the courthouse, she asked to speak to me. Diane said, absolutely not. But I looked at Tasha's face and said, 1 minute. Diane gave me the kind of look attorneys give clients when they think emotion is about to make something expensive. She stepped away anyway. Tasha and I stood near the courthouse, steps with traffic moving behind us into whole decades of friendship rotting silently between us. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, spiritually. I never meant for it to go this far, she said. I almost laughed. Then where did you mean for $12,000 and forgery to go? She flinched. I was angry, she said. You had everything opening up. People listened to you. They bought into you. And every time I walked into that store, I could feel how much of your life had turned into something real while mine kept slipping. There it was, not enough to excuse. Enough to explain. Comparison again, the old poison. I said, you didn't want to help me. You wanted some of what my work looked like from the outside. Tasha's eyes filled. I was there when you had nothing. That did not give you ownership of what I built next. She closed her eyes for a second. I saw my childhood friend again. The girl with scabbed knees and loud opinions, and dreams bigger than our zip code. Then I saw the woman she had chosen to become. I'm sorry, she said. I believed her. That's the cruel part. I believed she was sorry. I also knew some kinds of sorry only arrive after evidence. That apology is late, I said. But you can keep it. She looked like I had slapped her. Maybe I had. Just with accuracy. Then I left. Honey Lane survived. Actually, that's not true. It did more than survive. It got cleaner. Not richer overnight. Not magically healed. Cleaner. We changed access protocols. Moved all vendor approvals to two-factor authorization. Added new training for staff. Updated internal permissions. Installed one more camera near the office door, not because I was scared, but because peace likes backup. 3 months later, we launched our best fall collection ever, not because suffering makes product better. It doesn't. That's a lie people tell women to romanticize our pain. We did well because once betrayal burned through the building, what was left was honest, focused, protected. Kiara got promoted. Lena stayed. Bree stopped apologizing for every question and started asking better ones. And me? I stopped confusing history with trust. That changed everything. A year later, I found an old church photo in a drawer at home. Me and Tasha, both 13, grinning to hard, holding lemonade cups and paper napkins because we were trying to look grown. I stared at it a long time. Then I put it back in the drawer. Not because I hated her, because memory is allowed to stay memory, without becoming permission. When people ask me now what happened with my childhood friend, I tell them the truth. She didn't almost take my business because she was smarter than me. She almost took it because I loved her long after I should have started checking the logs. And if they ask how I stopped her, I tell them that too. She forgot something women who build from scratch always learn sooner or later. If you have enough to lose, you better have cameras. That is the truth, the whole truth, and this time it had timestamps.